Hi everyone. Welcome to our second panel, and our second panel guests today are Bill Rose, Diana Rankin, and Patrick Talbot. Shall we just get into it? So, my first questions are for you, Bill, and for you, Diana. So, it's more so how what made you decide to move to Doncaster?
Well, I've heard of England, in history and geography,
Yeah,
but never heard of Doncaster.
yeah,
But I was courting, and my boyfriend, when he came and tell me that he wants to travel to England,
yeah,
and then he asked me to marry him,
yeah.
and then we get married, and he came here.
Okay.
So a year later, I came over to him
Yeah,
in Doncaster. This was the first place I came to,
yeah.
and here I am.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And why did he decide to move to Doncaster of all of the places?
Well, he had his friend living here
Okay.
in Doncaster, and they correspond, and they probably have told him that life is good here.
Yeah,
So he came over,
yeah.
and then he worked, and that's then sent for me.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what did he work as?
Well, he worked in a factory,
Yeah,
and it's called the Molder in Bentley,
yeah,
and that was where he worked for a while.
yeah,
Then he went to a harvester.
yeah.
Yeah. He
Oh,
worked.
similar to Frank worked at the harbour.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
He only worked at Harvester for about 6 months.
Yeah.
So I wasn't here very long. He took ill,
Ah,
and then he passed.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
And
So
what?
I was left by myself to look after the kids.
Wow. How many kids do you have?
8.
Eight. Oh goodness.
Yeah, so
Wow.
but they're all grown up now,
Yeah.
and they've done well for themselves.
Of course.
But it was hard work.
I can imagine.
You
Eight
know.
kids is
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot.
it was hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what year did you move over?
And I came here in 1962.
1960.
I was 18. Yeah.
Wow.
When I first came, well, I came in June,
Yeah.
so it was nice and sunny,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was, and also while he was here, he made friends, so he had good friends.
Yeah.
And I came and met the friends, and we were all very comfortable together
Yeah.
because they're lovely, friendly people. And at first, in fact, for a long, long time, I wasn't settled here.
Mm-hmm.
If I had come by myself, I would have gone a long time.
Really?
Yeah, and so I stopped because I need to look after the kids, make sure they go to school.
Yeah.
But I still had the intention that as they grow up, when they grow up, I'm going back to Jamaica.
Yeah.
I told them when they finish work, when they started to work,
Yeah.
to
You're
save the money, buy the house. I didn't want to leave them in a rented property, and they all
okay.
did that.
Yeah.
And then some years later, I went back thinking, oh, I'll go and see what it's like.
Yeah.
I went for 6 months. It was lovely.
Yeah.
But things had changed. People changed. And then I thought, you know what, this is not for me.
Yeah.
I'll
You came
come
back.
back. Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was homesick for all those years. But
Yeah.
when I came back, I'm settled. I'll go and visit my family, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
Ah,
That's really what did you miss, when you went over back to where did you say Jamaica?
Jamaica.
Yeah. So when you went back to Jamaica, what was it that you missed about England?
Well, I miss my children,
Yeah.
because I miss my children. So, you are there and you're there thinking about the family in Jamaica
Mhm.
and the family here.
Yeah.
And then you thought, I better come back and stay with my family. I can always visit Jamaica.
Yeah.
So I'll stay here.
Bill, what about you? How did you end up in Doncaster?
Well, to start with, I'll introduce myself, William Rose, um, Jamaica born, British.
Mhm.
I came here in 1956, came to Nottingham. Most of the black chaps in Doncaster came from Nottingham.
Yeah.
Um, Plenty of jobs in Nottingham, but they were weren't well paid.
Okay.
I work at Chilwell Ordnance Depot.
Yeah.
That's where the soldiers were. And these elderly soldiers, they used to tell us what things were like. But they didn't tell you that the army, things that improved. They tell you about the old days. And this bloke says to me, he says, young'un, because you had to do national service at that time, 2 years. He says, young'un, go to the mines. Well, I had two brothers and they were in the mines. So it was easy for me. They were like pioneer. They told me everything. So I just decided to come to Doncaster, got trained with the intentions of going back to Nottingham as soon as I got trained. So I tried several times and I never ever get a chance to go back. Always something lay in the way. And I just made Doncaster my home and this is it. And I enjoy Doncaster.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a bit more later on why certain things happen. But as far as I'm concerned, Doncaster is my home.
And was it a big culture shock when you first came over?
Well, not really, because see, I can remember going to school and teacher telling us about grouse, that's in Scotland,
Yeah.
Upland Valley, and all the rest of that. We learned a lot about what happens in England.
Yeah.
So I know more about England than I know about the West Indies.
Really?
So,
So you knew what you were
so
getting
coming
into.
to England, the only thing that the first letter I wrote home say that I've landed and everything was all right.
Mhm.
I can remember saying it's 9 o'clock and the sun is still shining. That's the strangest thing, because as soon as it reaches after 5, 6 o'clock in Jamaica, it's dark.
Oh, yeah.
So that was that's the only thing that shocked me, nothing else.
It's strange that, isn't it? Because my family's from Barbados and it's the same thing. As soon as it gets to like 5 o'clock, suddenly it's just like a light switch.
Sun goes down, it's dark.
It's closer to the equator.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's it, yeah.
Right. Glad you're here. Okay. Yeah, what about for you? What was it like? Was it a bit of a shock or was it?
Really, it wasn't a shock because place looked all right. It was pleasant. I met lovely people.
Yeah.
But I was still homesick.
Yeah.
Because I left my sisters, my mother, and my father.
Yeah.
And I came and I thought, you know what, I would rather be home.
Yeah.
It's not that I was lonely because my husband was here, but I just wanted to be with my family.
Yeah. It's hard when they're that far
Yeah,
away.
it is right.
Yeah.
We kept in touch all the time, though. You could use phone at the time. There were no phones but the right letters.
Yeah.
And, let them know I'm okay. And I know they are okay. But still, I wasn't settled for a long time.
Yeah. I can imagine. How long did it take a letter to get from here to Jamaica?
Maybe about 7 days, I think.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, think about that time.
Yeah. And you're saying that you had quite a good community when you got over here.
Oh, yes, I met the first person, I met my husband's friend and his cousin.
Yeah.
And then all the people that he met before lived on Beckett Road, Morley Road, Beckett Road.
Yeah.
And so I get to know them. And I get to meet a lady called Pearl Latibo there. Went to visit her with her two children. Her son is in here today and his missus. Yeah. And they were lovely people.
Yeah.
So, I could go to their house.
Yeah.
And they could come to mine. And then as the children went to school, I get to know a lot of the parents.
Yeah.
So to take the kids to school, we take it in turns. We had 4 families. So we take it in turns each week. One of us will take all children, 4 families.
Yeah.
Another week, another take another family, and so we do it like that, and
Yeah.
it makes it easier for us,
Yeah.
you know. So it wasn't so hard.
I bet that was quite the school run with 8 kids and
But well, not all of them start their school together. You know, they take turns.
yeah.
You know, so when they take my kids, then I could stay home and do what I have to do,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
That's
But
nice.
it was good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can imagine. Now you said that you had 2 brothers that were in Nottingham, and when you moved to Doncaster, did you know anybody, or was it just starting fresh?
My brother was before me, came from Doncaster. He trained in Doncaster and went back to Nottingham.
Yeah.
So I expected to follow in his footsteps to come to Doncaster, get trained and go back.
Yeah.
So the friend that he stayed with when he was here, I was introduced to him and he see me. Well, I stayed with him for 3 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what was the nightlife like?
Well, uh, it, I mainly, I used to go back to Nottingham every fortnight.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to spend most of the weekend in Nottingham.
Yeah.
And, you know, as young lads, you were wild.
Imagine. Fantastic. And what was it like for you? Did you get to go out much? House
Well,
parties?
you see, we didn't have many places to go to at the time because I've got small children.
Yeah.
But we had parties in our house
Yeah.
and
What were they?
invite our friends.
Yeah.
You know, every holiday time, Easter,
Yeah.
bank holidays, my husband would invite his friends and we
Yeah.
have a house party.
And what were they
Or
like?
they will do the same. It was lovely.
Yeah.
You have music,
Yeah.
plenty music. We had this thing they call oh, I can't remember the name now. The old fashioned ones, you know, that they play the records on.
Oh yeah.
And they had these records. We have Blue Beat.
Yeah.
They have Fats Domino and all those records, so you could dance and enjoy yourself and be cook and enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, it was good.
Good. That sounds amazing.
Mm.
Fantastic. So, Patrick, it's a little bit different for you because you actually grew up in Doncaster.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in Donny?
Like you said, there wasn't many places for us to go. So as a child, we used to, for instance, I was from Beckett Road,
Yeah.
and we had people from Bowlby, Exthorpe, and what we used to do on a Sunday, we used to meet up as children and play rounders and cricket and football in the town fields.
Yeah.
And as I got older, 17, 18, like Bill was said, went wild. Doncaster was, it was a good place to be because at that time we had all the mines, harvesters, SR gents. So we had a lot of young people with a lot of income to spend. So
Okay.
Doncaster was, like I say, banging. It was happening. It was everywhere. The pubs, every Saturday night was full. All the pubs was full, and just the party atmosphere.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because they say that, didn't they? There's more pubs per square mile in Doncaster than in Ibiza or something like that.
To my son, my son says to me, "What was it like that when you were growing up?" I says, "Well, we went out on Christmas Eve." I says, "It's kicking, isn't it?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "This was Doncaster every Friday, Saturday night.
Yeah.
That's how it was and Sundays, and that's how it was."
Fantastic. And what kind of clubs did you go to when you went out?
We went to, well, I illegally went to the Outlook when I was 15, 16.
Nice.
And that was amazing. That
Yeah.
got me into music because I got there and there was people dancing. I've never seen people dance before like that, apart from when I was at youth club and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the music, R&B, and I just blown away by it. And I started collecting records, and now I've got thousands of them.
What was your favourite track from around that time?
I've got to say, R&B, it's got to be bit of Luther Vandross.
Oh,
I love a bit of Luther.
nice. Okay, yeah.
And of course, Bob Marley. I love Bob Marley.
Yeah.
First and foremost.
Fantastic, good shout. Okay, so then as you got older, you started working in the mines, didn't you?
Yeah, I started in mines when I was. What happened was I got a job working for a fiberglassing company, and one of my mates who I went to school with and lived around the corner from me on Beckett Road says to me he started the mine, and he was on training money, and he was on more money training for the working for the mines than I was actually earning. So he says to me, "Get yourself a job at Pitman, big car, whatever in future." So I got on my bike, went up to the mine, got there, signed up, started, and about 3 weeks later, and spent 14 years there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like working in the mines?
Initially, because it was 17, it was easy. But as I got older and I wanted to make more money, I moved from into the actual onto the faces, then into the headings, and it was hard. It was hard,
Yeah.
dangerous and hard. But there was a camaraderie there with the people that I worked with, that because it was so dangerous that
Yeah.
you always had somebody watching your back, and
Yeah.
you built up a relationship with that person. And it was, I've worked in industry all my life, and I've never felt that close to people
Yeah.
outside the mining industry.
And then you also worked in the mines, William. So what was it like for you
Like one?
working in the mines?
Yes, it was completely different working down the pit from the job I had at Chilwell. The camaraderie that you have down the pit,
Yeah.
you know, everybody's friends. You don't have sort of enemies, because if it's a dangerous place,
Yeah.
and if somebody get buried, you got to help to dig that person out, or that person got to help to dig. So fighting or thing like that was illegal down pit. You will get sacked straight away.
Yeah.
You know, so I enjoy the time I spent down the pit. I spent 15 years. Yeah, before due to ill health, I had to come out
Yeah.
the pit.
It's interesting that you both say that about the camaraderie
Yeah.
that you have down the pit.
Yeah, it was important because, like you said, you have to have somebody's back. You can't have an enemy when you're in open ground and he's watching your back. You can't have a beef between that person that you're supposed to be protecting and looking after.
Yeah. And what was it like outside of the pits with the
With the miners, with the people I worked with, it was
sort of, yeah, I just mean the contrast, because obviously being in the conversation we had before the previous panel, there were talks of like teddy boys and things like that. So it's interesting that when you're underground, it was all very cohesive, and above ground it wasn't.
In the 80s, we had a thing, football hooligans, namely to call themselves the Dressers.
Okay.
And we're forever fighting with them in Doncaster town centre.
Really?
There was always somebody somewhere having a fight with these people. Mainly when Doncaster Road was playing at home or something like that. You went into town centre, you're walking down the street, someone shouted at you. I got taught by my mother and my father to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
So if somebody give me an abuse, I'm there for it. I'm in the face. Why are you shouting at me? Why? And so we ended up with lots of fights.
And you were a miner during the miners' strike as well, weren't you?
Yes, I was, yes.
So what was that like?
That was tough. That was really, really tough.
Yeah.
My father's retired, and I'd just been to Ibiza on holidays, spent all my savings, came back to a strike, and nothing, absolutely nothing. And I started picketing, went on the picket lines and stuff, and it was difficult, really hard time. For a full year. I lived off my dad's pension.
Really?
Yeah, and mortgage wasn't paid, and bills mounted up, and everything like that. And so it was really tough.
Yeah. And you've spoken to me before about like the police and what it was like.
I got arrested in North Nottinghamshire, and I got put into a Black Maria for about 3 hours in the middle of July. So it was toasty.
Yeah.
Got to Nottinghamshire, Nick, and there was 7 black lads in there because we all went picketing together. And so we'd been in there 4 hours, and they came in with a frozen jam sandwich and a cup of tea. So they said to me, right, you get up. So I got up, went outside. He said, stand there, right? So I stood there. The policeman came up to me. He abused me, called me the N-word and everything like that. Told me to walk to the end of this corridor. So I walked to the end of the corridor, and another policeman there. What you doing here? N-word again. Gets them back. So basically, they walked me up and down this corridor, wanting me to sort of like snap or do anything. I'm in the police station. There's no way I'm going to start fighting any police there. So I just walked backwards and forwards. When they got bored with me, put me back in the cell.
Yeah. Awful. Did you speak to the other miners about it?
It happened to more than one of us.
Really?
Yeah. They did it with a couple of us, and then they got bored and left us alone.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And so probably move away from that then. So Diana, if you could go back through all of the years that you've been in the UK, what would you say is your proudest memories?
Well, now I'm settled. It's lovely. My kids have done well for themselves, and I'm quite happy where I am. You know, at first I thought, you know, going back to Jamaica, it would be fine. It's still lovely in Jamaica, but I'm here and I'm quite happy.
Yeah. And your proudest memories that you can.
And my family, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and my friends, and I'm well settled.
Yeah.
And occasionally some of my family will come over here, spend some time, and then go back.
That's nice. And Patrick, do you go over to Jamaica often?
I was there last year for my 60th birthday.
Nice.
And whilst I was out there, my wife got on Facebook and put my family name in. I've got family over there where I was planning to visit, but she put my family name and we found 34 members of my family I didn't know.
Really?
I'd never met before. So we all got together on Facebook, and then in November coming, we're going back to Jamaica, and all my family members are going to meet together and have a big party.
That's interesting. That'll be lovely. Have you found, obviously being away for such a long time, when you've gone back to Jamaica, is like the family just completely different, or the dynamic, or is there lots of family that you don't know yet?
Yeah, I find, like with my family, it was only 3 people that I knew.
Yeah.
They were all either in England, Canada, or America.
Yeah.
And it was like nephews and nieces and cousins.
Yeah.
But I went there January, and it must be about 40 of us met together, and we had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
Oh, it was really, really nice.
Yeah.
It's like something that you don't want to end.
Yeah.
You know, really nice.
Do you go back often?
A strange thing that happened. I went 75. I didn't go back again until 2030.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Something, I just did not feel like flying. So I used to go to Scotland and Wales and places like that,
Yeah.
you know, and spend a week or so.
And you drive?
But now, since I've got this urge, I'm thinking that twice a year.
Well, I go back on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So I've met most of my family.
Yeah.
My nieces, my nephews, my sisters and brothers, aunties and uncles and everybody. So it takes me a lot of time to travel around to greet everybody. So when I come back here, I'm so tired traveling from place to place, and I've decided that when I go again, they will have to come and see me. It's too much. Yeah, but it's nice to see them though. We gone there well, and they looked after me very well as well. In May, my sister passed, and one of my son and his daughter went with me. They can't wait to go back.
Yeah.
They've been for the first time for a long time, and they just start booking the fare ready to go.
Yeah.
Then it was so nice, you know.
Is it nice to get to share that with your kids?
Oh yes, lovely. I think they're planning now to go. They're asking me, when would you like to go? I'm ready when they are.
Do you have any kids, William? Do you have any children?
in, in orderly fashion. Orderly. Yeah, about 4 kids. There's 3 of them here. One is in London. So, well,
And have you taken them back?
you can stand up. You got permission. You can stand up. So that's one's in London.
And have you gone back? Have you gone on like a family holiday back home? You and your family?
Let's see. Yeah,
No, I'm saying,
they've all been to Jamaica.
They
They've
have,
all
yeah,
been to Jamaica, yeah.
Did they like it? Yeah.
Well, they can say whether they like it or not. No, I like it.
Fantastic. Okay, so just going back to being minors. Now you're both in the memorial sculpture, and if anybody's in the room can see at the very front there,
Yeah.
a cast of your head, isn't it? So what was it like being asked to be involved in that?
What was it?
In the memorial statue?
What was it like?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's an experience getting that done.
Yeah.
It start. I don't know. I think I'll wait while later on to tell you about Rostro because she's the mayor. She's the one that started getting that together.
Yeah.
And I was going through town and saw this poster thing, and anyway, I went in and got talking to it. I don't know what it was like. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, eventually we went to Doncaster College.
Yeah.
And I remember the morning this bloke says to me, it'll take about 2 hours. I don't know what to expect. I sat there and he started talking to me and I got carried away. Carried away. He had all this material in his mouth and doing this and doing that and talking to me. And I'll tell you something, he hasn't missed anything. You see this? Yeah. Good.
What was it like for you?
With me, I came home from work one afternoon, and then my wife says, "Oh, there's a thing come up on Facebook about wanting ex-miners to do some sort of exhibition or something like that." It says it's at Doncaster College. There's a number here. It says, "Do you fancy doing it?" I goes, "Yeah, go on then." So I went through. I went through to the interview, asked me all about where I worked and what I did, and then started taking photographs of me. These students were, and then about 3 weeks later, they said that we'd like you to come and have a sitting. So I came in, and Lawrence Edwards was sat there, and he had just a big bowl of hot water and a big bowl of wax. And he started asking me about what my life was been and the mines and stuff like that. And whilst I'm there, within an hour, it just put it all together, and there I was. Looking twice.
So he'd actually sculpted it?
Yeah, within an hour.
I don't know what I'd assumed it was like some sort of plaster mold thing.
What he did it in wax, and then what they do, they actually make a plaster mold of the wax, melt the wax out, then they pour the bronze in. That's a bronze statue.
No, that's phenomenal. It's so interesting. And do you think it's important to, acknowledge that there were black miners as well?
That's one of the reasons why I was so happy to do it, because there's me and Bill. That's it, isn't it, Bill? Just me and you. Yeah. Just me and you in there. And there was when Bill first came over to the country in the 1950s, there was lots of black miners, and in my generation, there was a fair few. So yeah, it's nice to represent.
Yeah. Because when you look through the pictures, it's always often, white guys, and it's very whitewashed, isn't it? But the reality is that because they were lower income jobs, a lot of sort of Windrush and migrants were told to work in the mines and do those jobs instead. So yeah, no, I like that. And did you think it was important to make sure that your head was part of that? Yeah, of course. Did you think it was important for your face to be involved in it?
Yes, very much so, because there's a lady in Nottingham, Norma Gregory, and she's the first one. she came to Doncaster.
Yeah.
And she says she's doing a story because nobody knew that black people work in the mines.
Yeah.
So she started doing this thing. So I went to Nottingham.
Yeah.
And that's when Channel 4 came and interviewed me. And a matter of fact, this lady slipped one in. Now I know everything about the mine. Everything about the mine. You ask me anything about the mine, I know it. So while this conversation, we were on camera.
Yeah.
And she says to me about this same Windrush. What do I think about this Windrush thing?
Yeah.
And it says, well, owing to the fact that I know that 1962, Jamaica went independent. I says, if you're here before 1962, you're British. I says, I come here, I'm British.
Yeah.
So after I told her that, she didn't say anything more to me. Right. So,
What was that for? The Channel 4? Was it for a documentary or was it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they were phoning me from Jamaica. Oh, I've seen you. I've seen you.
Has
Yeah.
it got that far back?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so 45 minutes.
Wow.
Minutes, yeah, that's gone by quick. Okay, so we'll finish off then. So with you two, if you had any advice for your younger selves before you came to England, what would it be?
Well, for me, I would say now when you get to England, well, I'll just give you a short thing.
Mhm.
See, I was very good in all subjects other than drawing. I couldn't draw anything. I still can't do. But you see, in Jamaica at that time, when you go for an exam,
Yeah.
you've got to pass every subject. If you fail one, you fail all.
Really?
And I know I couldn't draw anything. So that puts me straight out of it. I didn't. So I would say to myself, when you go to England, find a college, get yourself educated. That's what I would say to a young Bill.
For me, when I look back, because when I was 21, I look back on my life and I said to myself, I would I would stop on a school to get proper education because, as Bill said, if you take 5 subjects and you fail one,
Yeah.
that's it, you've lost everything. And
Right.
I took my 6 subjects and I failed one. But for me, I would stay there and finish
Yeah.
all my subjects, resit my exams,
Yeah.
and then get a career
What
before
subject did you fail?
I ever think of getting married
Yeah.
and start a family.
Nice.
That's what I would have done.
Okay. What's
Well, we still have children. We still have children, but I will try and get a career first.
of course? Fantastic.
Yeah.
What subject did you fail?
Well, we did English, maths, geography, even we did scripture. We had to do Bible studies, so it's
Yeah.
called scripture. We do science,
Yeah.
and what I feel was the geography.
Famous here.
Yeah.
The only thing that you've got to take all the subjects. You can't pick and choose.
Yeah.
It's all right there now because it's exactly as it is here.
Yeah.
But in my days, it was completely different.
Yeah.
And Patrick, if you had any advice now?
Can I just
Yeah, of course.
do full circle? My son never met my father. My father died before he was born, and he always asked me about what was it like growing up. My dad about Jamaica, anything like this. Anyway, Windrush came about, with Theresa May and all. So my son applied for a job with the Home Office, and he's now actually working for the Home Office, working on the compensation for the Windrush victims.
Wow.
Very good.
That's phenomenal.
Mhm.
I think that's a really good place, because that's sort of a reminder why it's so important that we share these stories and we keep part of our history. Yeah, of course.
I heard on the news that we're trying to dismantle that.
No. There's a lot of false information on the internet.
I only heard it. No, it wasn't. It was on the TV.
No.
Yesterday.
My son told me, I think it was last month, he'd been here for another 5 years. There's that many people being.
Right, well, if we could all give our panel a round of applause, please.
People, I would like to say thank you to.
Yeah,
so,
Thank you. Go for it. Phil would like to say thank you.
On that the grain matter is not working so well now, so names elude me, so I gotta write the names down. And the first one is Dame Rosa Winterton. She is the one that took me from unknown and took me to Wakefield. By the way, I'll tell you this. We had a little conversation. She asked me where I work. I told her. We got chatting, and then as soon as I came out of the pit, I'm a winder. And she says, well, we can't let that go. We've got to put that in record. So she took me to Wakefield. At that time, I did not know I was the only black winder in Great Britain.
Wow.
I did not see that as a big thing until I went to a dinner and I met our labor leader, Neil Kinnock. Rosie introduced me to Neil Kinnock. And he says, this is Bill Rose, the winder. He says, winder? I says, yes, I didn't see it as a big thing. I just see it as a job. Now, his uncle was a winder. And then he started telling me about the days when winders was such a top man. Even the manager of the pit got to phone him to come, if he wants him. He got to, on my desk there are two phones. If they want anything, they would phone and come over.
Yeah.
Now, there's one thing I've got to tell you this thing. I sat in the chair and this bloke comes from Rugby to maintain the engine. We've got a bloke that, we call go for it. You send him for anything. Anyway, he wants to know something. He was asking that bloke, and I sat in the chair. Well, when he asked him the second question, the bloke says, I don't know. Ask that man that sit in the chair. You see, because he's never seen a black winder. And he did not know there was a black winder. So that's where it all started. So Rosie took me to Sheffield, not Sheffield, Wakefield, and I did all on paper up there, down there. That was the beginning of this winding thing. After that, yeah, that's Rosie's bit. So I'll get to Russ Russ Jones. I just put my glasses on because my eyes not what they used to be. Yeah, Russ Jones. She's the one that engineered the rock. Has anybody been to Printing Office Street? Well, that's where the rock is. That's where our heads in.
Yeah.
And Russ Jones, she's responsible for most of that art. And then there is Lawrence Edwards. He's the man that did that.
Yeah.
So I would like to say a big thank you to all these poor people.
Yeah.
Lawrence, Rosie, and Ross. And
All right.
last but not least, I would like to say a big thank you to Mr. Watson for all putting all this together.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is the end of our panel. As Victoria said, there's food downstairs, there's music. Go and have a nice time.
Thank you.
Yeah.